Hope you're having a good Sunday. And today I'm going to be talking about social anxiety. So lots of people I've spoken to lately have told me that they have social anxiety. It's actually a really, really common thing, whereas people don't often think that's the case. They think that they're the only one that actually suffers from that. So why is it a problem and what is it? So social anxiety is fear of social situations. And why is it a problem? Well, if you think how many things we do which involve other people, then it's a lot of our life. So it's our career. So we probably work with people. A lot of free time we all probably spend with other people. So it could be social activities like hobbies, for example, dancing or playing a sport. Or just hanging out with people. So a lot of our time we spend doing these types of things. So obviously, if we're really nervous and scared and fearful, then we might find ourselves, for example, on the sofa every evening instead of doing something that we want to do with people. And this includes, obviously at the moment we can't do anything with other people anyway, but it's probably not for too much longer. And it does include things like virtual meetings and stuff, Skype sessions and Zoom, anything around other people, phone calls even. So that's what social anxiety is, and it stops you living your best life. So it stops you being the best that you could be if you suffer from this. So why do we have this? For example, if you're around plants, like I've got one here, and if you're around animals, nature, even babies, would you say you have social anxiety there? Are you scared of being around plants or animals? No. Okay, so what's the difference for people then? It's the difference between kind of hanging out with a dog versus hanging around with other people. Well, the difference is, and this was quite an eye-opener for me when I realised it was the fact that people judge you, and dogs don't judge you like that because they don't have thinking mind. So they're not thinking, oh, you're this kind of person or you're that kind of person. Whereas people do that all the time, straight away as well, like snap judgments. You look at someone, maybe based on what they're wearing, based on how they speak, you're making an immediate judgment about them and you equate that with who they are. When really everyone, as I mentioned in previous videos, everyone has this awareness. And then on top of that, we have layers of conditioning. So that's stuff we've picked up from our culture that we've grown up in, our parents, our peers. So we're all this awareness. But most people don't know that. They're not in touch with their true self, which is this just observing presence. And they live from this thought-based, mind-based sense of self, which is, I am this person, I have this job, I have these attributes about me, and all of these things are flaky, as I've said before, and so people don't really know who they truly are. And so that's why whenever we meet people, if you're unawakened, whenever you meet people, you're immediately judging them and kind of classifying yourself, like, where do I fit compared to this person? Am I superior? Am I inferior? How do I categorize that person? And we do this immediately with people. And when we do this with people, they can sense that this is happening. And it feels kind of uncomfortable because a lot of the times these judgments aren't nice things, they're not pleasant. They're actually negative things that the person thinks about you. And you can almost feel that energy when someone's doing that, especially the more you kind of become aware of these things, the more you practice presence, the more you notice people doing it. So it's quite funny. But not when you've got social anxiety, because you feel, or for example, if you walk in a room with loads of people, you feel their eyes on you, you almost feel those judgments coming at you. And there could be negative things like, oh, what is that person wearing? They look ridiculous, or oh, that person's got a really rubbish job, if they know you, or people have all these kind of worries about what other people think. And so, as I said before, we're kind of the only species that really does this. And the reason that we do judge so much is because we're trying to see where we fit in, because we think that we are a certain type of, we didn't realize we're this awareness, and actually we think we're just a limited person with all these attributes. And so therefore, to make your sense of who you are to be bigger, you've kind of got to put other people down or kind of make them different from you, when really they're not, they're the same as you. So there's this whole process to understand, but basically that's the reason why we judge, and that's the reason people have social anxiety. It's because it's not nice to be judged, so it's much more relaxing to kind of play with a couple of dogs and generally to meet a couple of strangers, like people, because you can, as I said, you can feel that judgment on you. So how do you overcome this? So there's a few ways, and it is a bit of a process to overcome it, but for sure it can be done. So firstly, you yourself have got to learn not to judge in the same way. Yes, of course you can. Doesn't mean you don't notice things. So for example, you can meet someone and they're really tall. Of course you notice that, but you don't equate that with who they are. You know that they are awareness, the same as you. This observing presence. They're the same as you, and they just have certain attributes. So that's the difference. It's not like saying you don't notice something, like someone's really tall or someone's wearing glasses. You don't notice that stuff. But you don't equate that with who they are in their essence, because their essence is the same as you. So ways to practice this non-judgment is to start with non-people, because people are quite hard to deal with because they judge so much, and so you can feel that. And if you're completely new to being present, then it's a tough challenge. So start with something easier. So here I've got a couple of things. I've got like a couple of shells, like from a beach. You want to practice being aware, like looking at something without judging it. Just observe it for what it is. So, for example, the shell, you can just spend some time just looking at all the detail. Natural things are the best. One, in my opinion, because they're the most beautiful things that nature creates. And two, because they don't have writing, which again is more thought and then more kind of judgment about something. So if you just look at it, so for example, this, it looks quite simple. It's just this little brown kind of shell. But actually, you can actually notice things in your mind. So for example, I just had a thought that, oh, it looks a bit like a comb. So again, that is still a type of judgment because it's comparing something to a past thing that I know about. So that's the judgment. The idea is actually just to look. So here, I'm just looking at it and I notice the colours. So it's kind of a tan colour and it's got some dark lines on it. And you can just kind of soak it in, just observe, like, how does it look? What are the patterns on it? How does it feel? Another sense perception, it's really smooth. So you can notice that. And then just do that for a while. And then everything else that you come across in your day, do the same. Like just spend like a few moments just observing. Like this is another little shell here. And it's got little brown spots on it. And again, just observe without judging, comparing it, labeling it to something. Just observe. And then I've got this plant that I showed you earlier. So again, in the same way, you can just look at things. So like this lovely, I'll just move it a bit closer. Here, you can just see the kind of trunk of this little tree here, and just look at all the detail on it. It's quite amazing because we never stop to do these things. Once we've given something a name, like this is a plant, or a dragon plant, you don't actually look anymore. You think you know what it is, but you don't know what it is because you've just given it a label to cover up what it actually is. So if you look, you can notice all the different patterns there. And on the leaves, you can look at the colours, look at the green and the red here. So just observe all the different shades. There's so much detail, there's so much beauty in everything if you actually just stop and have a look. But we don't. Once we label something, we think, oh, we know what that is. Next. No, you don't know what that is. You don't have a clue what that thing is. Actually just look at it and observe it. And it's beautiful. As I said, particularly natural things in nature. So that's the first thing I'd recommend you do is just start observing things instead. So instead of thinking you know what something is, actually just look. So quite often I go for a walk and there's a local lake nearby and I just watch the ducks. You can just watch them and like notice all the beautiful colours they have. At the moment it's spring, there's loads of babies and they're really cute. So you can just watch them, watch what they do, and just start practice actually observing things without labelling. So like labelling or judging, naming things, just practice that. And then gradually you can kind of move on to people. So if you start with a really judgmental person to start with, then you're not going to be able to do it. You're going to be more anxious. So start with the natural world, and then you can start with also with animals. You can be around animals. When I had my awakening journey, like a few years ago, I spent a lot of time with this cat that lived next door. He used to come to the garden, and I just kind of sit with it for a while. And I was like, wow, this is really peaceful and like really nice, like being with this animal compared to like my colleagues at work, for example. I was trying to work out why it was, and it's because of the non-judgment and the fact that they're already in the natural being state. They're not, and they're always relaxed within themselves, and that kind of that energy kind of rubs off on you. So yeah, start with nature, and then gradually you can start bringing that presence that you've built up. It's like a kind of muscle in a way, like when you work out in the gym, you get bigger muscles. Here you're training your attention, your focus on something to look without judging. And then when you do that, then you can start doing it. You've got enough kind of presence power or this muscle presence built up, then you can start doing it with people. And when you do with people, what I'd recommend is just looking into their eyes. That's really, really helpful. Because if you look, like our natural tendency to look over the body and then like all these kind of judgments just come up. The less so, the more you practice presence, but it still happens to some extent. So just look into the eyes. You say that it's a window to the soul, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. So when you look at someone in the eyes, it's like, one, it takes away the judgments, and two, I just feel that there's much more of a connection than it would be otherwise. And then really listen to what they're saying. And if you have thoughts that arise about them, so judgments or comments, just notice those thoughts and just let them pass by, and then continue your focus and look at the person in the eyes and just listen to what they're saying. And just generally try and be as present as possible as you can with people. So, for example, when I do a lot of dancing, when I used to walk into the dance floor, like loads of people, I used to feel a bit nervous because like you feel these eyes watching you and people judging. But actually, what I've learned to do now is just to make sure that I've got a good, confident posture, and then walk, and then feel every movement of your foot on the floor. Just notice that. Just be completely present with it. And that's a real help. It's the main thing is just stepping out of that mind, which your mind is just thinking like, oh, these people are saying this about me, this is saying, just ignore all that mind chat, which you don't need, and just be present. So just going to be a little bit of a summary. So social anxiety, yes, it is an issue, and it's because people judge. And the reason people judge is because they're trying to kind of fit themselves with, they're trying to work out who they are compared to you, when really they don't need to, because they're the same as you, but most people don't know that yet. And that's why we judge. And then how to overcome it is, I'd say, practice presence of things like nature, practice looking without labeling, look into people's eyes as much as you can when you talk to them, and people will appreciate that too. Shows you're actually listening, and then just try and be present. So that's all your senses. So whenever you walk into a social situation, just be completely present with that moment. So just don't let your mind wander off to the future or into the past, but just gonna be completely present and look and listen. And if you notice judgmental thoughts, then just kind of bring your attention back to the now. And it's totally possible to get over it. I work with lots of people and help them. And yeah, it changes your life because you can view people in a certain way your whole life and you judge them, they judge you. You're always trying to kind of get one up on them or beat someone at something or whatever it is. And it's like really tiring and not enjoyable way to live. Whereas you can feel connected to everyone you meet instead, and appreciate everyone's differences. And it's a game changer, really is. So any more information, let me know. If you enjoyed it, please comment below or share with anyone you think might find it useful. And have a wonderful rest of your Sunday afternoon. Cheers, guys.